Thunder rumbles beyond a tapestry of ancient stars. Every culture that ever looked to the night sky saw more than just points of light. They witnessed epic dramas of gods and monsters locked in combat, a celestial theater where the fate of the universe was decided. You are about to journey through 25 of the most incredible ancient myths of heavenly warfare, stories that forged our world from chaos and gave the stars their names. By the end, you will understand how these cosmic battles are the hidden foundation of human civilization itself. We will uncover why a Babylonian sea goddess was torn in two to create the earth, and how a humble, diseased god had to leap into a divine fire to become our sun. These are not just tales, they are the reason we see order in the cosmos and purpose in our existence. What kind of grand story do you think the silent stars are telling us tonight? That silent story begins with a voice from the deepest past, from the cracked clay tablets of Mesopotamia. Before our world had a name, there was only a swirling, watery chaos, a formless abyss of salt water personified as the goddess Tiamat. She mingled with the sweet waters of her consort Apsu, and from their union sprang the first generations of gods. But these new deities were loud and vibrant, their energy disturbing the primordial quiet. Apsu, weary of the noise, plotted to destroy his own children to restore silence. Yet one of the gods, learned of the plot and struck first, casting Apsu into an eternal sleep. This act set the stage for a war that would forge the universe. Consumed by grief and rage at her husband's fate, the once passive Tiamat transformed. She became a vengeful dragon of the deep, creating an army of monstrous serpents and scorpion men, with her new lover Kingu as their general. The younger gods were terrified, cowering before this unstoppable force of primal fury. They needed a champion, and they found one in Marduk, the god of storms and magic, a deity of immense power and even greater ambition. He agreed to face Tiamat, but on one condition. If he emerged victorious, he would be granted supreme authority over all the gods. Desperate, they agreed. Marduk prepared for his divine duel, arming himself with a net, a club, and his most potent tools, the four winds. He rode his storm chariot into the heart of the abyss to confront the embodiment of chaos itself. The battle was a cataclysm of cosmic forces. As Tiamat opened her massive jaws to consume him, Marduk proved his cunning. He did not meet brute force with brute force. Instead, he commanded the four winds to rush into her mouth, inflating her body until she could not close it. With her defenses down, he drove an arrow deep into her swollen belly, ending her reign of terror. But the victory was only the beginning of creation. Marduk then stood upon Tiamat's colossal corpse and did the unthinkable. He split her body into two great parts. With one half, he arched the heavens, pinning the stars in place. With the other, he forged the solid earth, anchoring the waters below. From her weeping eyes, he made the sources of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Her defeated commander, Kingu, was executed, and from his blood, Marduk created the first humans to serve the victorious gods. This was not merely a story for the Babylonians, it was the foundation of their entire world order. The Enuma Elish was recited aloud during the Grand Akitu, or New Year, festival. This annual performance was far more than a religious ritual, it was a powerful reaffirmation of the cosmos. It reminded everyone that their king ruled by Marduk's divine mandate, maintaining the hard-won order against the ever-present threat of chaos. So the next time you look up at a stable sky or feel the firm ground beneath your feet, remember the price paid for that order. It was bought with the body of a primordial goddess. If the very earth and heavens are born from such a violent beginning, what other celestial conflicts shaped the lights in our night sky? That war between order and primal chaos echoes across the world in another legendary struggle. One fought not in the watery abyss but among the very peaks of the heavens. The Greek Titanomachy was a brutal 10-year war that pitted the new Olympian gods against their tyrannical predecessors, the Titans. This was a family conflict on a cosmic scale, a son's rebellion against a father who feared being overthrown. The Titan king Cronus, who had once seized power by overthrowing his own father, lived in dread of a prophecy that foretold one of his children would do the same to him. In a desperate attempt to cheat fate, he swallowed each of his newborn children whole, but his wife Re, grieving and furious, managed to save her youngest. She tricked Cronus by giving him a stone wrapped in swaddling clothes to swallow and hid the infant Zeus away in a cave on Crete. Raised in secret, Zeus grew powerful and cunning. He eventually returned to force his father to disgorge his brothers and sisters, the first Olympians. Now united, this new generation of gods declared war on the old order for control of the cosmos. The battlefield was the universe itself. Zeus wielded his newly forged lightning bolts, weapons of unimaginable power. His brother Poseidon commanded the oceans with his trident, stirring up tsunamis and earthquakes. Their other brother, Hades, used a helmet of invisibility to move unseen through the fray, striking from the shadows. They faced formidable titans like the mighty Atlas, whose strength was enough to hold up the sky, and the relentless Cronus, who would not yield his throne without a fight. The conflict was so immense that the very earth groaned under the strain. Mountains were torn from their foundations and hurled as weapons. The plains shook and the forests burned. For 10 years, the war raged with no clear victor, a stalemate of divine fury. The deadlock was only broken when Zeus, following a prophecy, released the Cyclopes and the 100-handed hecatoncheires from the depths of the earth. The Cyclopes, master smiths, forged the ultimate weapons for the Olympians, including Zeus' iconic lightning bolts. The 100-handed giants, with their immense strength, pelted the Titans with hundreds of boulders at once, overwhelming them with a hailstorm of stone. Finally, the Olympians triumphed. To ensure the Titans could never threaten their rule again, Zeus cast most of them into the deepest, darkest pit of the underworld, a prison called Tartarus. He assigned the 100-handed giants to stand as eternal gods. For the Titan Atlas, who had led the charge against them, Zeus devised a unique and eternal punishment. He was forced to stand at the western edge of the world and bear the weight of the celestial heavens upon his shoulders for all time. This victory established a new cosmic order, the reign of the Olympians, which became the foundation for all of Greek myth and religion. It was a story that explained not just the rule of Zeus, but the very nature of power, succession, and the inevitable clash between the old and the new. If the Olympians themselves had to fight a devastating war to claim their throne, what does that tell us about the price of order in the universe? And if one pantheon could be overthrown, could another rise to take its place? That same theme of a costly peace forged in divine warfare resonates deeply in the frozen halls of the Norse cosmos. Far from the Mediterranean sun, the Norse envisioned a different kind of celestial struggle, not a straightforward rebellion, but a brutal and confusing war between two distinct tribes of gods. On one side stood the Aesir, the gods of power, law, and warfare, led by the one-eyed Allfather Odin. On the other were the Vanir, deities of fertility, magic, and the natural world, masters of the earth's abundance. They were not enemies by nature, but two different expressions of divinity, and their conflict began not with a stolen throne, but with a moment of shocking violence against a single, enigmatic figure. A mysterious being known as Gullveig, whose name means gold power or intoxication, arrived in the golden realm of the Aesir. She was a being of immense greed, obsessed with gold, and she brought with her a corrupting influence that the warrior gods found both alluring and deeply threatening. In a fateful attempt to purge this corruption, the Aesir seized her. They stabbed her with spears and threw her body into a roaring fire, not once but 3 times. Yet each time she was reborn from the ashes, more powerful and more terrifying than before. This act of attempted destruction, this triple burning, was the spark that ignited the war. The Vanir, furious at this treatment of one of their own, demanded equal status and reparations. When the Aesir refused, the realms were plunged into a conflict where sorcery was as potent as the sword. This was not a simple clash of armies. The Vanir wielded a profound, earthy magic called Seidr, a form of sorcery that could bend fate itself. The Aesir, for all their martial strength, found themselves outmatched by these powers. Odin, in his relentless pursuit of knowledge, eventually learned these very arts, but the war dragged on, a grueling stalemate that left both sides exhausted. Neither tribe could secure a decisive victory, and they realized that continued fighting would only lead to mutual annihilation. So, in a move that speaks to a very pragmatic worldview, they did something remarkable. They declared a truce and spat into a great cauldron. From that mingled spittle, they created a being of such profound wisdom that he was beyond any single tribe, the god Kvasir. This act of creation from a shared substance symbolized their new commitment to peace. To seal this fragile alliance, they exchanged hostages, a practice common in Norse society. The Vanir sent two of their most brilliant beings to live among the Aesir. They sent Njörður, the god of the sea, winds, and wealth, and his twin children, the radiantly beautiful Freyja and Freyja. In return, the Aesir sent Honir, a god who was tall and handsome, and appeared to be a great leader along with the wise Mimir. But this exchange was not without its treachery. The Vanir soon grew suspicious that Honir was indecisive without Mimir's counsel whispering in his ear. In a terrible act of retaliation, they beheaded Mimir and sent his head back to Odin. The All-Father, in his grief, used his magic to preserve the head, allowing Mimir to continue whispering secrets from the well of wisdom that now bore his name. This myth of the Aesir-Vanir War is a profound reflection of the Norse spirit. It was not about the total victory of one side over the other, but about the hard, messy, and sometimes cruel process of negotiation and integration. It explains why the Norse pantheon is a fusion of warrior gods and gods of the earth, acknowledging that a complete life requires both the power to defend and the magic to make things grow. The peace was imperfect, paid for with the blood of a goddess and the head of a sage, but it created a stronger, unified pantheon capable of facing the greater threats to come. If even the gods must learn to negotiate and merge their strengths to survive, what does that say about the nature of the universe they ruled, and what greater threat could possibly loom that would require such a hard-won unity? That hard-won unity of the Norse stands in stark contrast to a feud that tore the Egyptian pantheon apart for 80 long years. It was a conflict born from a single, treacherous act of murder. The wise King Osiris, who brought civilization to Egypt, was brutally slain by his own brother, Set, the god of violent storms and the barren desert. With Osiris gone, the throne of the gods was empty and Set seized it for himself. But a rightful heir existed, Horus, the son of Osiris. This set the stage for a cosmic legal battle and a series of brutal, magical contests to determine who was the true king. The struggle between Horus and Set was not just a family dispute, it was the eternal battle between the fertile, predictable order of the Nile and the chaotic, destructive power of the desert. The gods themselves assembled as a tribunal again and again to hear the cases of the two rivals. Isis, the mother of Horus and a goddess of immense magical power, tirelessly defended her son's claim, while Set used every trick of force and persuasion to hold onto his stolen crown. The arguments dragged on for decades, a celestial court case with the entire universe in the balance. When words failed, the conflict descended into surreal and violent physical contests. In one famous episode, the two gods transformed into massive hippopotamuses and submerged themselves in the Nile, each trying to hold their breath longer than the other to prove their superiority. On another occasion, they battled as ferocious lions, then as swift, powerful bulls, their divine essence shifting form with the flow of their rage. It was in one of these brutal encounters that the conflict reached a horrifying peak. Set managed to gouge out one of Horus's eyes, tearing it to pieces. The loss was catastrophic, a symbol of the king's wholeness being shattered by chaos. But the injury was not one-sided. In retaliation, Horus delivered a blow that struck at the very source of Set's power, severing his testicles. This was more than mere mutilation, it was profound cosmic symbolism. Horus, the representative of kingship and life, had his eye restored by the god Thoth, becoming the legendary Wedjat or Eye of Horus, a powerful symbol of protection, healing, and the restored order of the universe. Set, the force of raw, untamed chaos, was left wounded but not destroyed, his power to create new life forever diminished. The final resolution came not from a single victory but from a judgment. The gods, after 80 years of strife, finally decreed that Horus was the rightful ruler of the living world, the true king. Set, however, was not cast into a dark pit. He was given a vital, if dangerous, role as the god who would ride the solar bark of Ra through the night sky, defending it against the serpent of chaos, Apep. This was the genius of Egyptian thought. They understood that chaos could never be fully eliminated, only contained and harnessed. The pharaoh of Egypt was the living embodiment of Horus on earth. His authority directly descended from this divine victory. The Wedjat Eye watched over the kingdom, a constant reminder of the price paid for order and the ever-present threat of chaos that required a strong king to keep it at bay. If even the gods require a balance between order and chaos, what does that say about the world we live in? And how many more eyes were lost in the heavens to create the stars we see tonight? The struggle between order and chaos often requires more than simple warfare. Sometimes the greatest cosmic achievements demand a temporary, uneasy truce between sworn enemies. This is the profound truth at the heart of the Hindu legend of the Samudra Manthan, the churning of the ocean of milk. The Devas, the gods of order and light, had been weakened, their power fading. To regain their strength and secure the elixir of eternal life, the Amrita, they needed to perform an impossible task, and for that they needed the strength of their eternal rivals, the Asuras, the powerful demons of chaos and darkness. The two opposing forces agreed to a temporary alliance for one grand purpose: to churn the primordial ocean itself. Their tools were as colossal as their ambition. They uprooted the immense Mount Mandara to use as a giant churning staff. The great serpent king, Vasuki, agreed to serve as the churning rope. The Devas held the serpent's tail, while the Asuras, believing themselves wiser, took hold of the head. With a mountain poised on the back of the cosmic turtle Kurma, an avatar of the great god Vishnu, they began to pull. Back and forth they tugged, rotating the mountain with titanic effort. But this cosmic endeavor did not begin with treasure. The first thing to emerge from the churning depths was a thick, suffocating smoke, followed by a deadly, world-consuming poison known as halahala. This venom was so potent it threatened to destroy all of creation. In this moment of crisis, the god Shiva, the great ascetic and protector, stepped forward. He gathered the poison into his hands and, to save the universe, drank every last drop. The poison was so powerful it stained his throat blue, earning him the name Nilakantha, the blue-throated one. With the poison neutralized, the churning could continue, and the ocean began to yield its divine wonders. From the depths emerged the celestial cow Kamadhenu, who could grant any wish. Then came the goddess of beauty and prosperity, Lakshmi, who arose from the waters and chose Vishnu as her eternal consort. Apsaras, the divine dancers, and other treasures followed, each a jewel of creation. Finally, after immense effort, the physician of the gods emerged, holding the pot of Amrita, the nectar of immortality. The moment the goal was in sight, the fragile alliance shattered. The Asuras, driven by greed, immediately seized the pot. A ferocious battle erupted across the heavens for control of the elixir. The Devas, desperate, turned to Vishnu for help. The preserver of the universe took on a new, unexpected form, that of the enchanting Mohini, a woman of unparalleled beauty. Captivated by her, the Asuras willingly handed her the pot of Amrita to distribute fairly. With divine grace, Mohini served the nectar to the devas, ensuring they drank it all. One asura named Rahu saw through the deception. He disguised himself as a diva and managed to take a sip of the immortal drink. But before the nectar could pass his throat, the sun and moon gods alerted Vishnu. In an instant, Vishnu threw his celestial discus, severing Rahu's head from his body. Because he had tasted the Amrita, both parts became immortal. Rahu's head became a celestial entity that eternally chases the sun and moon across the sky, causing eclipses when he catches and swallows them, only for them to fall out through his severed neck. This grand myth is a masterful lesson in cosmic balance. It shows that creation and destruction are two sides of the same process, that even the greatest treasures can be born from cooperation with one's enemies, and that order is not a permanent state, but a delicate equilibrium maintained by cunning and sacrifice. If the nectar of immortality could only be won through such a perilous and deceptive endeavor, what other cosmic prizes were born from conflict and trickery among the stars? That struggle between light and darkness is etched into the very fabric of the universe in one of history's most influential myths. In ancient Persia, a visionary prophet named Zoroaster taught of a cosmos born from a fundamental choice, a choice that ignited a 12,000-year war. This was the eternal duel between two primal spirits, Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Wisdom and Pure Light, and his absolute opposite, Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit of chaos, falsehood, and darkness. Their conflict was not a single, decisive battle, but a vast, ages-spanning process for the soul of all existence. At the beginning of time, Ahura Mazda, in his boundless wisdom, created a perfect spiritual universe, a realm of truth and radiant order called Asha. But Angra Mainyu, in his envy and ignorance, chose to attack this perfection. He did not create from nothing, he corrupted. He brought forth death to counter life, winter to blight summer, and suffering to taint happiness. He infested the pristine world with venomous serpents, noxious plants, and all manner of lies. This was a war fought on every front, both in the spiritual realm and in the physical world we inhabit. Humanity itself was a key battlefield in this cosmic struggle. Ahura Mazda created humans with free will, the profound ability to choose between the path of Asha, of truth and righteousness, and the path of Drudge, the deceit championed by Angra Mainyu. Every good thought, every honest word, every righteous action was a blow struck for the forces of light, strengthening Ahura Mazda in the celestial conflict. Conversely, every act of cruelty or falsehood empowered the dark spirit. This placed an immense moral responsibility on every person, making them active soldiers in a divine war. The ultimate destiny of this epic conflict, however, was not left in doubt. Zoroastrian prophecy foretold a final, glorious triumph for the good. At the end of the 12,000-year cycle, a savior figure would appear, the world would be purified in a river of molten metal, and the dead would be resurrected. This event, called Frashokrati, would mark the final defeat and annihilation of Angra Mainyu and all his works. The cosmos would be restored to its original, perfect state, eternally free from suffering and deceit. This powerful dualistic vision did not remain confined to Persia. Its ideas flowed westward, deeply influencing the development of later Jewish, Christian, and Islamic beliefs about a final judgment, a clear dichotomy between good and evil, and the concept of a cosmic adversary like Satan. For the mighty Persian emperors, this myth was more than theology, it was state ideology. The king was seen as a warrior for Ahura Mazda on earth, his empire a bastion of order and truth against the surrounding forces of chaos and the lie. When every human choice can tip the cosmic scales, what responsibility does that place upon our own shoulders today? Even in the most ordered of creations, life can produce its own destroyer. Far to the east, in the myths of Japan, the universe began as a formless, floating oil slick upon the primordial sea. The very first gods summoned into being two divine beings, the male Izanagi and the female Izanami, and gave them a celestial spear. Standing upon the floating bridge of heaven, they dipped the spear into the chaotic brine below and stirred. When they lifted it, the drops that fell from the tip coagulated into the very first solid land, the island of Onagoro. They descended to this new earth, built a great pillar, and performed a ritual of marriage circling the pillar from opposite directions. Their union gave birth to the rest of the Japanese islands and then to a multitude of gods, the spirits of the mountains, winds, and rivers. But the act of creation held a terrible price. When it came time to give birth to the fire god Kagetsuchi, the process was so searing, so elemental, that Izanami was horrifically burned. Her body was consumed by the very life force she had brought into the world, and she descended into the dark, polluted land of the dead, Yomi. Izanagi was shattered by this loss. His grief curdled into a blazing, inconsolable rage, and he turned his fury upon the cause of his sorrow, his own newborn son. In a fit of divine vengeance, he drew his sword, the famed Totsuka note, Tsurugi, and beheaded the fire god Kagetsuchi. This was not an act that ended in mere death, but one that sparked another wave of furious creation. From the blood that dripped from Izanagi's sword, new gods sprang forth. From the various parts of Kagetsuchi's dismembered body, even more deities were born. His head became a mountain god, his chest a rock god, his stomach a wind god, and his limbs other elemental spirits. The violence used to avenge a death became the source of even more life, a relentless cyclical process. Driven by a desperate love, Izanagi then made the perilous journey into the underworld to plead with Izanami to return. He found her in the shadows, but she warned him not to look upon her. Unable to resist, he lit a tooth of his comb as a torch, and the flame revealed her corpse, now swollen and rotting, host to maggots and thunder gods. Horrified, Izanagi fled, and a humiliated Izanami, along with the hags of Yomi, chased him to the very border of the land of the living. He sealed the entrance with a massive boulder, and their final exchange from opposite sides of that stone was a declaration of divorce, a promise that she would strangle 1,000 of his living subjects each day. He defiantly retorted that he would build 1,500 birthing huts each day in response, establishing the eternal, grim balance between death and life. This profound myth lays the foundation for the entire Shinto worldview. It explains why death is considered a polluting force, necessitating rituals of purification. It illustrates that the divine, the kami, is not distant or purely benevolent, but is present in all things, born from both creative love and destructive rage. Every mountain, every rock, every gust of wind is a descendant of that first violent act, a testament to a universe where creation and destruction are two sides of the same sacred coin. If even the gods cannot escape the cycle of life born from death, what does that tell us about the very nature of existence? The Irish landscape itself remembers a war fought for its very soul. Long ago, the Tuatha De Danann, the people of the goddess Donu, arrived in Ireland on dark clouds that blotted out the sun for 3 days. They were a race of divine beings, masters of magic, art, and craft. To claim the island as their own, they first had to defeat the existing gods, the Firbolg, in a fierce but honorable battle. Though victorious, their king, Nuada, lost his hand in the fight. According to their own laws, a king must be physically whole to rule, and so Nuada was forced to abdicate. This moment of vulnerability invited a far greater threat, the monstrous Fomorians. These were not noble opponents. The Fomorians were grotesque beings of the deep sea and the darkest wilderness, often depicted with the limbs of goats and the heads of bulls, a race of pirates and tyrants who demanded cruel tribute from the land. With a maimed king, the Tuatha De Danann were weak, and the Fomorians saw their chance to enslave them completely. A new king, Brez, was chosen, one who was half Fomorian himself. He promised peace but delivered only oppression, taxing the gods into poverty and humiliation. The Tuatha De Danann soon rebelled, casting out the tyrant Brez. Nuada, now with a magically crafted silver hand that restored his wholeness, reclaimed his throne, but everyone knew this was not the end. the Fomorians would return for vengeance, and a final, apocalyptic battle was inevitable. Into this tense moment of preparation walked a young man named Lug. He arrived at the royal court of Nuada and was stopped by the gatekeeper, who demanded to know his skill. Every warrior and craftsman had one supreme talent, but Lug claimed he was a master of all of them: a champion, a harper, a hero, a poet, a historian, a sorcerer, and a craftsman. He was Lug Lamfada, Lug of the Long Arm. Recognizing his profound value, King Nuada, in a moment of great wisdom, gave up his own throne to this brilliant youth for the duration of the war, understanding that victory would require more than just a whole body. It would require a complete and cunning mind. Lug began to prepare for the coming storm, gathering the greatest champions and deploying the secret knowledge of the Druids. The two armies finally met on the plain of Tuired. The battle was a cacophony of clashing spears, shouted spells, and the roars of monsters. The fighting was so fierce that the very ground turned to mud with blood. But the conflict hinged on a single terrible weapon, the eye of the Fomorian High King, Balor of the Baleful Eye. This was no ordinary eye. It was a weapon of mass destruction, kept closed by heavy lids that required 4 men to lift with poles. When that eyelid was raised, the venomous gaze that erupted from it could incinerate an entire army on the spot. Balor was Lug's own grandfather, a chilling twist of fate, yet he was the Fomorians' ultimate champion. As the battle raged, Balor was brought to the front lines. The poles strained, and the great eyelid began to creep upward, ready to unleash its annihilating glare upon the Tuatha Danann. But Lug was ready. He moved with the speed of light, fitting a specially crafted stone into his sling. As Balor's eye opened, Lug let the stone fly. It did not strike the eyelid. It shot directly into the opening eye itself, passing straight through the poisonous orb and out the back of Balor's skull, carrying the destructive power with it. The force of the blow was so great that the eye was driven backward, its venomous gaze now blasting into the ranks of the Fomorians themselves, decimating their own army. With their king and their ultimate weapon destroyed, the Fomorians broke and fled, never to threaten Ireland's sovereignty again. The victory at the Second Battle of Tuired was a triumph of holistic skill over a singular, overwhelming power. Lug, the master of all arts, had defeated Balor, a master of only one, a brutal and unthinking force. This myth established the Tuatha Danann as the true gods of Ireland, beings who valued wisdom, law, and diverse talent. Their reign became the golden age of the island, a time when skill and sovereignty were forever intertwined. If a single sling stone could decide the fate of a nation, what other celestial battles were won not by brute strength, but by a single, perfectly placed shot? A single sling stone saved Ireland, but in the myths of the Aztecs, an entire world required a far more profound offering. After the fourth sun was destroyed by a great flood, the gods found themselves shrouded in absolute darkness. The cosmos was still, silent, and lifeless. They gathered at the sacred city of Teotihuacan, the place where gods are made, and determined that a new sun must be born to set the cosmic cycle in motion once more. But this sun would not be forged from a slain monster or won in a war. Its creation demanded a different kind of battle entirely, a war against pride and fear waged on the precipice of a divine bonfire. The gods declared that one of them must leap into a colossal, roaring furnace to become the new celestial light. 2 gods stepped forward. The first was Tecusistecatl, a wealthy and proud deity adorned with rich Quetzal feathers and gold. He was certain of his own glory and saw the sun's role as his rightful destiny. The second volunteer was a stark contrast, the humble Nanahuatzin. He was a lowly god covered in sores and disease who spent his days in quiet penance. While Tecusistecatl made grand offerings of expensive coral and colorful Quetzal plumes, Nanahuatzin could only offer his own sincerity, presenting simple green reeds, balls of grass, and the scabs from his own pustules. The great pyre burned for 4 days, its heat pulsing across the plain of Teotihuacan. When the moment of truth arrived, the proud Tecusistecatl approached the inferno first. Yet as he felt the searing, unbearable heat on his face, his courage failed him. He hesitated, stepping back not once but 4 times, unable to make the final, fatal leap. The other gods looked to Nanahuatzin. Without a moment of hesitation, without a single word of pride, the diseased god closed his eyes and hurled himself resolutely into the very heart of the flames. His body was instantly consumed. Shamed by this incredible act of courage, Tecusistecatl found his resolve and leaped in after him. For a time, there was only darkness and the crackle of the fire. Then the sky began to lighten. Nanahuatzin, transformed and radiant, rose from the eastern horizon as the glorious 5th sun, bringing light and warmth to the world for the very first time. Close behind him, Tecusistecatl also rose, becoming the moon, shining with a pale, diminished light as a permanent reminder of his initial hesitation. But the story did not end there. The sun and moon now hung motionless in the sky, locked in place. They required a force to set them on their eternal journey across the heavens. Seeing this, the great god Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, understood the final, terrible requirement. He took a sacrificial knife, and one by one, the remaining gods offered their own lives, spilling their sacred blood as the ultimate offering. It was this collective, divine sacrifice that provided the animating force, the cosmic wind that pushed the sun and moon into their daily motion, establishing the rhythm of day and night that governs our world. This myth was the absolute cornerstone of the Aztec worldview. It explained why the sun moved, why the moon was dimmer, and most importantly, it established that the cosmos itself runs on the fuel of sacrifice. If even the gods had to offer their own lives and blood to set the world in motion, then humanity living under that sun had a profound debt to pay. This belief fueled the Aztec practice of human sacrifice, which they saw not as mere brutality, but as a sacred duty, a necessary repayment to the gods to ensure the sun would continue its journey and the world would not be plunged back into eternal darkness. If the universe demands such a high price for its very existence, what other cosmic cycles are kept in balance by a terrible and beautiful exchange? That same theme of a cyclical cosmos powered by sacrifice finds a gentler but no less profound rhythm in the warm Pacific winds. In Hawaiian mythology, the universe itself breathes to the alternating pulse of 2 great gods, Ku and Lono. This is not a story of a single, decisive war, but of an eternal, necessary dance between 2 opposing forces that define life itself. Ku is the god of war, of government, and of the deep, dark forests where hardwoods are felled for canoes and temples. He represents the time of striving, of conflict, and of political power. His opposite is Lono, the god of peace, fertility, farming, and the life-giving rains. He is the spirit of abundance, of music, and of communal celebration. The Hawaiian year is divided into their 2 distinct reigns, a celestial agreement that structures all of human society. For 8 months, the stern god Ku holds sway. This is the time for war, for building, for political ambition, and for the hard work of fishing and deep ocean voyages. It is a period of masculine energy and structured authority, where the social order is maintained and defended. But then, as the Pleiades star cluster rises at sunset in late October, a profound change sweeps across the islands. The Makahiki season begins, and with it, the reign of Lono. For 4 months, the god of war is symbolically bound and set aside. All conflict ceases, and the tools of war are packed away. In his place, Lono returns, his presence marked by a long, white tapa cloth banner carried in a clockwise procession around each island. This was not a silent procession. The people would sing, dance, and offer their gratitude, while the chiefs and tax collectors would follow, gathering the tributes of food and cloth that sustained the community. It was a time of massive sporting events, of feasting, and of deep rest for both the land and its people. The soil was left fallow, the fishing was restricted, and the focus shifted entirely to games, music, and honoring the forces of life and growth. This alternating rule was the heartbeat of the culture. It reflected a sophisticated understanding that neither war nor peace could be permanent without destroying the balance of the world. A society under constant war would exhaust itself and starve. A society in perpetual peace would become soft, unable to defend itself or muster the discipline for great endeavors. The myth of Ku and Lono encoded this wisdom into the very calendar, forcing a rhythm of exertion and recovery, of building up and then celebrating the fruits of that labor. The universe itself required both the fierce drive of Ku and the gentle abundance of Lono to remain whole. If the turning of the year is a celestial battle between two divine brothers, what other cosmic rhythms are hidden in the stars, dictating the rise and fall of human empires? Even the most stable heavens can be shattered by a single act of prideful despair. In the celestial bureaucracy of ancient China, a perfect cosmic order was maintained under the Jade Emperor, the supreme ruler of the heavens. But this harmony was violently broken by the water god Gong Gong, a temperamental and powerful deity who grew envious of the emperor's authority. He gathered an army of disgruntled spirits and launched a full-scale rebellion, aiming to seize the throne for himself and plunge the universe into a watery chaos. The heavens trembled as his forces clashed with the loyalist gods, threatening to unravel the very fabric of creation. To counter this deluge of insolence, the Jade Emperor summoned the fire god Zhu Rong, a deity of unwavering loyalty and fierce, purifying flames. A monumental duel was set, an elemental clash of fire against water that would decide the fate of the cosmos. Zhu Rong, mounted upon a chariot of pure flame, met Gong Gong on the battlefield. The conflict was a cataclysm of opposing forces. Gong Gong summoned tidal waves and torrential rains to extinguish Zhu Rong's fire, while Zhu Rong's blazing heat turned the onslaught into scalding steam. It was a battle of attrition, but the disciplined, focused power of fire eventually overwhelmed the chaotic, scattered might of water. Zhu Rong emerged victorious, driving the rebellious god from the field. Defeated and consumed by humiliation, Gong Gong fled across the heavens. His shame was so absolute, his rage so profound, that he could not bear to live with his failure. In a final, spiteful act, he resolved to destroy himself. He chose the method of his suicide with catastrophic intention, hurling his own head against one of the 8 great pillars that held up the sky, the mighty Mount Baju. The impact was universe-altering. The celestial pillar, not simply broken, was utterly shattered. Its collapse sent a shockwave through all of existence. The perfect domed sky, now missing a crucial support, tore loose from its northwestern moorings and tilted drastically downward. Simultaneously, the earth below buckled and sank in the southeast. This single impact created a permanently flawed and asymmetrical cosmos. This divine temper tantrum became the foundational explanation for the fundamental patterns of the natural world. The tilted sky is why the sun, moon, and stars all move from east to west, sliding down the slanted firmament. The sun, for instance, must climb back up the incline each day, which is why it moves more slowly in the afternoon. The Earth's sinkhole in the southeast is the reason why all of China's great rivers, like the Yangtze and the Yellow River, flow relentlessly in that direction, draining the lands into the sea. This myth provided a profound answer to a universal human question: why is the world imperfect? The Chinese cosmos was not flawed from the beginning. Its beautiful imbalance, the very thing that gives us our days, our seasons, and our fertile river valleys, was born from a god's wounded pride. If a broken pillar can set the stars on their path, what other celestial scars mark the surface of the night? That same impulse to bring light from darkness shaped an empire high in the Andes. For the Inca, the universe began not with a war of gods, but with the solitary will of Viracocha, the supreme creator. Emerging from the vast, deep waters of Lake Titicaca, he found a world cloaked in an impenetrable primordial gloom, a land populated only by silent, ungrateful giants. This was a cosmos of pure potential and pure chaos, a canvas awaiting order. Viracocha's battle was not fought with weapons but with command. He did not slay a monster of darkness, he simply spoke to it. Standing at the sacred lake, he summoned the very celestial bodies into existence. From the same waters, he commanded Intai, the sun god, to rise and bring warmth and light. He called forth Mama Killer, the moon, to provide a softer radiance for the night. He then scattered a handful of shimmering light across the black velvet of the sky, creating the stars. This was a divine act of organization, a systematic campaign against the formless void. With the heavens now perfectly arranged, Viracocha turned to the earth, sculpting the mighty Andes and populating the land with humans he fashioned from stone. Before departing across the Western Sea, he left behind lesser deities to teach humanity the arts of civilization, ensuring his cosmic order was reflected in society. This foundational myth was the absolute bedrock of the Inca Empire's power. The Sapa Inca, the emperor, was not merely a political leader. He was believed to be a direct descendant of Intai himself, the sun god Viracocha had placed in the sky. His right to rule was therefore not just inherited, it was cosmic. Just as Intai brought vital light to the world, the Sapa Inca was the essential life force for his people, the central pillar that held their ordered world together. The entire empire, with its capital Cusco, considered the navel of the world, was a living monument to Viracocha's original victory over chaos. If the emperor's authority came directly from the sun, what did that mean for the people who lived in its shadow, and how far would an empire stretch to prove its divine connection to the heavens? Even the most radiant celestial power can be humbled by the cold touch of the underworld. In the heart of ancient Sumer, the goddess Inanna, queen of heaven, possessed authority over love, war, and fertility. Yet she grew restless. Her dominion felt incomplete, for there was one realm that defied her command, the silent, dust-choked land of the dead, ruled by her elder sister, the formidable Ereshkigal. This was not a journey of sorrow, but a calculated, aggressive challenge. Inanna, in her star-studded crown and lapis lazuli beads, resolved to descend and confront her sister's solitary power, to seize control of the ultimate frontier, death itself. She instructed her faithful minister, Ninchuba, to raise a lament to the high gods if she did not return in 3 days, a crucial safeguard for her audacious plan. As she approached the lapis lazuli walls of the underworld, she was met not with welcome but with a gauntlet of 7 imposing gates. At the first gate, the guardian demanded a price for entry. Inanna, proud and confident, surrendered her crown. At the second gate, she gave up her lapis lazuli beads. Gate by gate, she was systematically stripped of her divine regalia, her rod of power, her royal robe, until finally, at the 7th gate, she was forced to remove her very last garment. Naked, bowed, and stripped of all her celestial identity, she was brought before Ereshkigal's throne. The queen of the underworld did not greet her with sisterly affection. She fixed the naked, vulnerable Inanna with the eyes of death, and in that moment her judgment was swift and absolute. Ereshkigal turned Inanna into a corpse, a lifeless piece of meat, and hung her on a hook upon the wall. For 3 days, the Queen of Heaven was a rotting spectacle in her sister's domain, and all life and fertility on the earth above ceased with her. It was Ninchuba who set the rescue in motion, just as instructed. She pleaded with the gods, but Enlil and Nanna refused to interfere, seeing Inanna's fate as just punishment for her pride. Only the god of wisdom and water, Enki, saw the cosmic catastrophe unfolding. From the dirt under his fingernails, he fashioned 2 asexual beings, the Kurgara and Galata. He gave them the food and water of life and sent them slipping like shadows into the underworld. They found Ereshkigal in the throes of childbirth, groaning in agony, utterly alone in her pain. They did not confront her. Instead, they mirrored her sorrows, groaning with her in a profound act of empathy. Moved by this unexpected compassion, the Queen of the Dead offered them a boon. They asked only for the lifeless body hanging on the hook. With Ereshkigal's consent, they sprinkled the food and water of life upon Inanna's corpse, and the goddess stirred, resurrected back into her power. But the underworld has an ancient, unbreakable law. No one leaves without providing a substitute. Inanna ascended back to the world of the living, but she was followed by a troop of relentless gala demons, tasked with dragging anyone back to take her place. They found her husband, the shepherd god Dumuzid, not mourning her disappearance, but sitting upon her throne, dressed in royal splendor. Enraged by his betrayal, Inanna gave him to the demons. His capture and cyclical descent for half the year became the price for her own freedom. This epic was far more than a sisterly feud. It was a cosmic coup that redefined the nature of divinity itself. By conquering death and returning, Inanna did not just reclaim her heavenly throne, she absorbed the underworld into her portfolio. She became the ultimate sovereign, ruling both the vibrant pulse of life and the silent mystery of death. Her journey established the very template of the dying and rising god, a myth that echoes through countless cultures. It explained the harsh reality of the seasons, the death of vegetation in the summer heat when Dumuzid is taken, and its rebirth with his return. Inanna's power struggle forged an eternal link between the celestial heights and the subterranean depths, proving that true, absolute authority requires mastery over the entire cycle, from the brightest star to the dust of the grave. If a goddess must be stripped, killed, and reborn to claim her full power, what does that say about the price of true cosmic sovereignty? That Slavic pursuit across the heavens echoes a battle fought not for total victory, but for the very rhythm of the world itself. High in the celestial realm of Prav, the domain of order and law, ruled the thunder god Perun. He was a formidable figure, a warrior god with a silver beard and an axe that could call down lightning, the ultimate enforcer of cosmic structure. His eternal adversary was Veles, a shape-shifting, serpentine god who dwelled in the watery depths of Nav, the underworld of chaos, secrets, and untamed potential. Their conflict was the great engine of the Slavic cosmos, a drama played out in the sky above every village. The confrontation always began with a transgression. Veles, the great trickster, would slither up from his realm to steal what was most precious to the god of order. Sometimes it was Perun's divine cattle, the clouds themselves. Other times it was his very children or even his wife, a theft that symbolized the chaotic underworld claiming the fruits of the ordered world. This act was a direct challenge to Perun's authority, an intrusion of chaos into the realm of law. Enraged, Perun would mount his chariot and give chase across the vault of heaven. The sound of his pursuit was the rolling thunder that shakes the very ground. He would hunt the serpentine Veles as he tried to escape back to his watery domain, and at the climax of the chase, Perun would hurl his lightning axe. The brilliant flash in the sky was that divine weapon striking its target, a blast meant to destroy Veles and reclaim what was stolen. Yet this was a battle with no final end. Veles was never truly annihilated. He was always wounded, driven back into the depths, forced to release his captives, which would bring the life-giving rains back to the earth. This was the profound Slavic insight. The struggle was cyclical, not linear. It repeated with the turning of the seasons. Perun's victory brought the storms of spring and summer, the rain that nourished the crops and upheld the world of Prav. But Veles's inevitable return, his creeping influence bringing the drought of autumn and the cold stillness of winter, was just as necessary. It was the time when the world of Nav held sway, a period of rest, decay, and hidden potential beneath the soil. One could not exist without the other. A world under Perun's permanent rule would be a world of constant, unrelenting storm and rigid structure. A world forever dominated by Veles would be a formless, watery chaos without form or harvest. Their eternal duel created the balance that made life possible, a cosmic tension between the clear sky and the fertile mud, between the structured community and the wild, untamed forest. The very weather was a testament to their divine struggle. So the next time you feel the electric charge in the air before a storm, remember you are witnessing the latest chapter in an ancient, necessary conflict. If the balance of the world depends on such an endless pursuit, what happens when a battle in the stars is fought for keeps, with the very fabric of reality as the prize? Even the most trusted hands can falter under the weight of a divine command. From the heavens of the Yoruba people, the supreme god Olodumare looked upon the vast, watery chaos below and decided it was time for solid ground. He summoned the gentle, creative god Obatala, entrusting him with the most sacred of missions to descend from the sky and sculpt the earth. Olodumare gave him the essential tools for this task: a long chain of gold to lower himself down, a snail shell filled with sacred soil, and a 5-toed chicken. Obatala set off, his heart full of purpose, but his journey was long, and the world below was a featureless, monotonous sea. As he traveled, he grew weary and thirsty. He came across a grove of palm trees, and drawn by their sap, he tapped the trunk and drank the sweet, fermenting palm wine. The intoxicating drink clouded his divine senses, and the careful, creative god fell into a deep, deep slumber, the sacred materials lying unused beside him. High above, another deity watched this failure unfold. Ojujuwa, often seen as a rival or a junior, saw Obatala lying in a stupor and recognized the cosmic crisis. The creation of the world could not wait. Seizing the moment and the sacred tools, Ojujuwa took the chain, the snail shell, and the 5-toed chicken and descended to the very edge of the primordial waters. He poured the soil from the shell onto the watery expanse, and then he set the chicken upon it. The bird began to scratch and scatter the earth, clawing at the mud and spreading it in every direction. Where its feet touched, the land solidified, expanding from a single point into the wide, firm world. This was not the gentle sculpting of a craftsman, but the decisive act of a founder, a celestial coup that established order through bold initiative. When Obatala finally awoke, sober and horrified, he found the world already made and Ojujuwa standing as its creator. A profound tension was born in that moment, a celestial conflict not of clashing weapons, but of broken responsibility and seized opportunity. Obatala's failure and Ojujuwa's success created a foundational rift, a story that explains the historical and political rivalries between their descendants, the very lineages of Yoruba kings. Yet the place where Ojujuwa stood, the city of Isle Ife, became the sacred cradle of all Yoruba people, the spot where the heavens met the earth and human civilization began. The myth asks us a difficult question: is authority earned by the purity of one's intentions, or by the decisive action that gets the world made? The price of creation is often a single, irreversible mistake, but the cost of prosperity is a desperate, sea-swept battle. In the misty lands of Finnish myth, the source of all good fortune was not a god or a natural force, but a forged object, a magical mill called the Sampo. Its lid was a many-colored mosaic, and its mechanisms, when turned, ground out an endless supply of salt, grain, and gold. It was the ultimate prize, the very engine of a thriving civilization. The wise bard and sage Vainamarainen knew his people needed this treasure, but it was held by Lauhai, the powerful and grim witch of the frozen northern realm of Pohjola. She hoarded its abundance for herself, leaving the southern lands of Kaelva in want. So Vainamarainen, along with the cunning smith Ilmarinen, who had originally forged the Sampo, and the hot-headed warrior Lemminkainen, set out on a perilous quest not to negotiate but to steal it. Their journey to the grim, mist-shrouded lands of the north was a voyage into the heart of opposition, a direct challenge to the powers of the wild. They succeeded in locating the Sampo, hidden within a mountain of rock, and managed to wrench it from its vault. Loading the miraculous mill onto their ship, they set sail for home, their hearts swelling with the promise of unending wealth for their people, but their triumph was short-lived. The witch Lao Hai discovered the theft and unleashed her fury. She conjured a thick, impenetrable fog to blind the heroes, then raised the very winds themselves into a monstrous form, summoning a terrible tempest to shatter their vessel and reclaim her prize. When her magic storms failed to stop them, she transformed herself, taking on a horrific new shape. She became a colossal griffin, a monstrous hybrid of eagle and lion, with wings vast enough to blot out the sun and talons sharp enough to tear a ship in two. She soared over the churning waves, her shadow falling upon the fleeing boat as she descended for the attack. What followed was a battle fought on a canvas of wind and water. Vainamarainen, the elder sage, stood firm against this aerial terror. As the griffin Lao Hai swooped down, her claws aiming for the Sampo, he seized an oar not as a paddle but as a weapon. He waited for the perfect moment, and then, with all his strength, he struck a mighty blow against the monster's talons. The impact was violent and decisive. The Sampo, balanced precariously on the ship's deck, was jolted loose. It tumbled overboard, shattering into countless fragments as it struck the unforgiving sea. The great mill, the source of infinite prosperity, was lost forever to the depths. The battle ended as suddenly as it began. The griffin, wounded, retreated. The storm subsided, but the loss was absolute. The heroes could only watch in despair as the pieces of their future sank beneath the waves. Yet, from this catastrophic failure came a fragile, bittersweet hope. The myth tells that the fragments of the Sampo did not vanish without a trace. Some pieces washed ashore, bringing to Finland what little measure of fertility and wealth its rugged landscape possesses. Other, smaller pieces were carried by the currents across the world, seeding pockets of prosperity in distant lands. The largest piece, however, remains at the bottom of the sea, where it continues to grind, turning not salt and gold, but the very sand of the ocean floor, creating the endless silt that clouds the water. This is not a story of clear victory, but of a hard, pragmatic compromise with the world. The Sampo was not destroyed by evil, but broken in a struggle between two legitimate forces, the organized South and the untamed, possessive North. It explains why no nation can have limitless abundance, why prosperity is always finite and must be earned through struggle and loss. The sea battle for the Sampo is a fight for the source of life itself, a reminder that the greatest treasures are often shattered in the claiming, and that we must build our world from the precious fragments we manage to salvage. If the source of all wealth lies broken at the bottom of the sea, what other cosmic treasures have been lost to the depths of time, their scattered pieces shaping the world we know today? A poisoned spear still quivers in the rock, marking the place where the world was made. Across the vast red plains of Australia, the land itself remembers a different kind of celestial war, one fought not among distant stars but here on the earth during the Dreamtime. This is not a time in the distant past, but a sacred and eternal dimension where ancestral beings, the creators, moved across the formless world and sang it into existence through their epic journeys and conflicts. Their battles were not for thrones or treasure, but for the very soul of the landscape, and their stories are etched into every mountain, every waterhole, and every river. One of the most powerful of these stories is the hunt for Leru, the giant poisonous snake, by the Wati Kutjara, the two men. These ancestral heroes were not gods in a far-off heaven, but embodiments of kinship and law. They were tracking the land when they encountered the devastation left by Leru, a monstrous cannibal being who killed with a venomous spear. The confrontation was immediate and brutal. In the fierce battle that followed, the two men fought with skill and courage, but one of them was struck by Leru's poisonous spear. He did not die instantly. He fought on, his body weakening as the venom coursed through him, until finally, with a last mighty effort, the two men managed to kill the monstrous serpent. This was not the end of the story, it was the moment of creation. The body of the slain Leru transformed, his massive coils becoming the rolling hills and ridges you can see in the desert today. The place where the wounded hero finally succumbed to the poison became a specific, sacred site, his spirit infusing the location forever. Even the poisoned spear that struck him is still there, visible as a tall, dark stone monolith standing stark against the sky. Every feature of that land is now a chapter in that celestial battle, a permanent record of that ancestral conflict. This is the profound truth of the Dreamtime. The world is not just a physical place, it is a living, spiritual text. The epic struggles between the rainbow serpent and other ancestral beings carved out the rivers and gorges, their creative and sometimes destructive energies shaping the world as we know it. These battles did more than just mold the earth. They established the first laws, the intricate system of kinship and reciprocity that governs all relationships between people, between clans, and between humanity and the land itself. To stand in that desert is to stand on a battlefield where the victors did not claim a crown, but instead became the very ground beneath your feet. If every mountain is a fallen ancestor and every river the path of a creator, then what stories are we walking on every single day without even knowing we are reading them? The lords of the underworld did not appreciate the noise from the surface. In the depths of Xibalba, the Mayan realm of the dead, the gods of sickness and suffering grew annoyed by the thunderous sound of the hero twins' father and uncle playing the sacred ball game above their heads. It was an invitation, a challenge they could not ignore. They summoned the players to the underworld not for a fair match but for a contest of deadly cunning. The first pair of brothers failed their tests and were sacrificed, their heads placed in a dead tree as a warning. But this was merely the prelude to the main event, the arrival of their sons, Hunahpu and Xbalanque. These twins were born for this conflict, destined to face the ultimate game against the masters of decay and despair. Their journey into Xibalba was a descent into a cosmic trap, a series of lethal houses designed not just to kill, but to humiliate and obliterate hope itself. The first test was the Dark House, a chamber of absolute, suffocating blackness. The lords expected them to fail immediately, to be consumed by fear. But the twins were prepared. They lit a single cigar and used its glowing ember to keep the darkness at bay. And in the morning they returned the cigar untouched, as if the night had been nothing to them. Next came the Razor House, a room filled with shifting, bladed knives. Instead of walking into the shredding metal, Hunahpu and Xbalanque spoke to the knives, convincing them that their purpose was to hunt and kill game, not to harm the twins. The blades fell still, and the brothers passed through unharmed. They survived the cold house by huddling together for warmth, and the jaguar house by throwing bones to the savage cats to distract them. In the firehouse, they walked through the inferno without being burned. Each victory was a testament to their cleverness, a refusal to play by the underworld's brutal rules. The lords of Xibalba were baffled and furious. Their final trap was the bat house filled with deadly, shrieking bats. Here, the twins nearly met their end. Hunahpu peeked out from his hiding place as dawn approached, and a great bat swooped down, instantly severing his head. The lords rejoiced, believing they had finally won. They took the head to use as the ball in their next game, but Xbalanque was not finished. He carved a new head for his brother from a squash, and through magic and trickery, managed to retrieve the real one and restore Hunahpu to life. This resurrection was the turning point. Now understanding the true nature of their enemies, the twins shifted their strategy from mere survival to a brilliant, theatrical conquest. They returned to the lords not as defeated challengers, but as magnificent performers, dancers and magicians who could set a house on fire and then restore it, who could sacrifice a dog and bring it back to life. The death gods were mesmerized. They demanded to see the ultimate trick, a performance where one brother would sacrifice the other and then bring him back. Xbalanque did as they asked, dismembering Hunahpu before their eyes. Then, with a wave of his hand, he restored his brother to life, whole and healthy. The lords, especially the two highest, 1 death and 7 death, were ecstatic. They begged, "Now do it to us, sacrifice us." The twins, of course, agreed. But when they sacrificed the lords of Xibalba, they did not bring them back. They had broken the power of the underworld forever. Victorious, Hunahpu and Xbalanque ascended from the darkness, not back to the world of the living, but into the sky itself. One brother became the sun, the other the moon, their eternal journey across the heavens a daily reminder of their triumph over death. This celestial battle established the very rhythm of life, the cycle of day and night that promises that even in the deepest darkness, the light will always return. A dragon's shadow fell across the world, a tyranny written in fire and blood. From the darkest pits of Angra Mainyu's imagination slithered Azhi Dahaka, a three-headed, six-eyed serpent dragon, a monster so vile his very breath corrupted the land. This was not a beast of mindless hunger, but an intelligent fiend, a sovereign of suffering installed as the ruler of mankind. His reign was a perpetual nightmare defined by a gruesome daily ritual. To sustain his own vile strength and to weaken the spirit of creation, he consumed 2 men from the villages each day, devouring them whole as a terrifying sacrifice to the lie of his power. The world groaned under his scaly grip, its people living in a state of constant, scheduled dread, their hope dwindling with each setting sun. Yet in the heart of this darkness, a hero was being prepared. Thraetaona, a youth of noble and righteous lineage, was chosen by the divine powers of Ahura Mazda for a single, monumental task. He was not just a strong warrior, but a man of pure purpose, his spirit aligned with the forces of Ashar or truth. His quest began not on the battlefield, but at the forge. Guided by divine inspiration, he crafted a weapon unlike any other, a mace or club imbued with symbolic power. Its head was shaped like a cow, a sacred creature representing the fertile, nurturing life that Azhi Dahaka sought to destroy. This was not merely a tool for bludgeoning, but a consecrated instrument of cosmic justice. Armed with this holy weapon and his unwavering faith, Thraetaona sought out the dragon's lair. The confrontation was a clash of absolute opposites, the embodiment of righteous order against the pinnacle of deceptive chaos. Thraetaona did not merely fight the beast, he outmaneuvered its triple malevolence, striking with the force of his blessed mace. The blow did not kill Azhi Dahaka, for such a concentration of evil could not be so easily erased from existence. Instead, Thraetaona achieved a more profound victory. He wounded and subdued the great dragon, then bound him in unbreakable chains. His prison was not a dark pit, but the highest, most majestic peak in the land, the mighty Mount Damavand. There, bound to the cold rock, Azhi Dahaka remains to this day, his venomous rage simmering within the mountain, causing the volcanic fires that occasionally rumble within it. This binding was a temporary solution, a containment of the world's greatest threat until the final renovation of the universe. The myth foretells that at the end of days during the final battle, Azhi Dahaka will break free for one last desperate stand, only to be utterly annihilated by the forces of good. Thraetaona's heroic act was a promise, a guarantee that tyranny, no matter how monstrous, can be chained by courage and faith. It teaches that the battle against evil is not always about total obliteration, but often about courageous containment, about holding the line until a final, greater victory can be won. If a single hero can leash a world-devouring dragon to a mountain, what other ancient evils might be slumbering in the quiet places of the earth, waiting for their chains to rust? Even a world born from harmony can be shaken by a rebellion from the deep. The Batak people of Sumatra envision a cosmos of 3 interconnected layers, a delicate balance between the upper world of the gods, the middle world of humanity, and the lower world of the underworld. From this divine triad, the supreme deity Mula Jadi Nabolon shaped the earth, a disk of solid land designed to be the home of life. But this creation rested upon a foundation of immense, restless power, the cosmic serpent Nagapadoha, who dwelled in the watery abyss below. For a time, there was peace, a fragile truce between the firm land above and the coiling darkness beneath. this peace was not destined to last. Nagapadoha, a being of pure, untamed chaos, grew restless in his confinement. He began to stir, his massive serpentine body twisting and turning in the dark waters. His movements were not mere shifting, they were a deliberate assault on the order imposed from above. The solid earth, the very middle world, began to tremble and crack. The land buckled and the seas churned as Nagapadoha sought to throw off his burden, to return the world to the formless, watery void from which it came. The stability of all existence was threatened by the serpent's rage. Mulajadi-Nabalon could not allow this rebellion to succeed. The supreme deity descended, not to the middle world, but directly into the churning abyss to confront the serpent in its own domain. The battle that followed was a cataclysm of elemental forces, a struggle between the will to create and the desire to unmake. Mulajadi-Nabalon, embodying celestial order, fought against the raw, chthonic power of the serpent. It was a conflict that shook the very pillars of the three worlds. The victory was hard-won. Mulajadi-Nabalon did not destroy Nagapadoha, for such a fundamental force of the underworld could not be utterly erased. Instead, the deity achieved a more practical, enduring solution. Using immense divine power, Mulajadi-Nabalon pinned the great serpent down, fixing him firmly in place at the bottom of the abyss. The earth was stabilized once more, secured upon the subdued body of its ancient foe. But the serpent was not killed, only bound. To this day, Nagapadoha lies trapped beneath the world, and his eternal struggle to free himself has never truly ceased. When the serpent stirs in his chains, when he twists and strains against his celestial bonds, the earth above quakes and shudders in response. Every tremor, every earthquake that rips through the land is a distant echo of that primordial battle, a reminder that the world we live on is a precarious victory over chaos. The ground beneath our feet is not merely soil and rock, but the lid on a prison holding a restless, cosmic prisoner. If the very stability of the earth is the result of a god subduing a serpent, what other ancient struggles are written into the geology of our planet, waiting to remind us of their power? A dragon's roar echoes from the mists of Celtic Britain, a sound that predates kings and castles. Long before the Knights of the Round Table, the dragon was not merely a heraldic symbol, but a living force of the land itself, a celestial power locked in an eternal struggle. This ancient archetype finds its most famous expression in the legend of King Arthur, a story deeply woven with threads of cosmic conflict. The foundation of his myth rests upon a prophetic vision witnessed not by a king, but by a boy who would become the wizard Merlin. The Celtic king Vortigern, trying to build a fortress at Dinas Imrais, found his towers mysteriously collapsing each night. His wise men told him the only solution was to sacrifice a fatherless boy. They found such a child in the young Merlin, but the boy, possessing a wisdom beyond his years, revealed the true reason for the failing foundation. He told Vortigern to dig beneath the hill. There, the workers discovered a hidden pool, and within it, two great dragons, one red and one white, locked in furious combat. Their battle beneath the earth was the true cause of the shaking ground. The red dragon would gain the upper hand, only for the white dragon to rally and drive it back, a relentless, cyclical war fought in the darkness. Merlin then interpreted the vision. This was no mere animal fight, it was a celestial omen written in scales and fire. The red dragon represented the Celtic Britons, the native people of the land. The white dragon symbolized the invading Saxon armies. Their struggle beneath Dinas Imrais was a divine mirror of the historical conflict raging on the surface, a fight for the very soul and sovereignty of Britain. The prophecy foretold that the red dragon would ultimately prevail, a promise of eventual victory for the native people. This mythic framework was the cradle for the Arthurian saga. Arthur himself, the once and future king, was the fulfillment of that promise. His very standard was the golden dragon of Britain, a direct claim to that primordial, victorious power. His battles were not just political or military campaigns. they were continuations of that same cosmic struggle for order against chaos. He was the champion of a divinely ordained sovereignty, fighting to establish a realm of justice, a Camelot, against the encroaching darkness represented by both human enemies and supernatural foes. The medieval storytellers who crafted the Arthurian cycle were absorbing and repurposing a much older Celtic understanding of the world, where the land and the heavens were in constant, dynamic conversation. The dragon was not invented for Arthur, it was a primal force he harnessed. His legend is a powerful reminder that our grandest stories of kings and knights are often just the latest retellings of the oldest battles, the eternal fight between the red dragon and the white, waged for the soul of the world itself. If a king's right to rule was once confirmed by a dream of dragons fighting underground, what other ancient powers lie sleeping beneath the foundations of our own world, waiting for a prophet to uncover their meaning? That dragon's roar fades, leaving a silence deep enough to hear the earth itself breathe. Far across the ocean, in the high desert of the American Southwest, the Hopi people tell of a celestial battle of a completely different kind, a struggle not for a throne but for a home. Theirs is the story of the emergence, a long migration upward through 3 previous worlds, each abandoned when the people fell into corruption, conflict, or forgot the sacred way of living. Weary from their journey, they finally arrived at the gateway to the 4th world, the world we inhabit today. But this new world was not empty. It was guarded by a formidable and terrifying power, Masor, the keeper of the land. He was not a king or a warrior god in the traditional sense, but a skeletal figure, a spirit of death and fire, who held the keys to survival in this harsh, beautiful, and unforgiving landscape. The battle that ensued was not fought with swords or lightning bolts. It was a spiritual duel, a test of heart and mind. Masor presented the Hopi with a simple, profound challenge. He offered them a gourd of water and a planting stick, the most basic tools for life. Then he laid out his terms. If they wanted to live in his world, they must prove they understood the true meaning of those tools. They had to demonstrate that their wisdom was greater than their ambition, that their respect for the land was deeper than their desire to dominate it. This was the ultimate celestial battle, reframed as a moral and ecological trial. The Hopi people accepted this challenge. Their fight was one of endurance, humility, and relentless perseverance. They learned to read the subtle signs of the desert, to plant their corn in the dry sand with faith in the infrequent rains, to build their villages on high mesas in harmony with the spirits of the place. They did not conquer Masor, they earned his respect. By choosing the path of the planting stick over the path of the sword, they won the right to stay, but with a solemn covenant. Masor taught them that life is a struggle, but that the true battle is within, a constant effort to maintain balance, to live with a grateful heart, and to honor the cycles of death and rebirth that he himself represented. He, the god of death, became their guide to life. This myth reframes our very idea of a cosmic conflict. The greatest war is not against a monster, but against our own potential for greed and short-sightedness. The prize is not a crown, but the right to belong to the earth, to live in a delicate, sacred partnership with forces that can either sustain us or consume us. If the price of a home in this world is a promise to care for it, what does that say about our own place in the cosmos today? A child's lonely cry drifted across the plains, a sound that summoned a hero from the stars themselves. The people were suffering, their hunters unable to find game, their children growing weak. In their desperation, they called to the heavens, and their plea was answered by a being of pure light, a celestial spirit known as Falling Star. He descended to the earth not as a distant god, but as a young boy found and raised by a kindly grandmother. He was one of them, yet he carried the power of the cosmos in his heart. But his true purpose was to confront a terror that stalked the land, a creature of absolute malevolence known as Unsedjilla. She was a monstrous double-faced giant, a primordial serpent of stone so vast her scales were like granite plates, with a face of pure evil on either end of her long, coiling body. Her very presence poisoned the earth, drying up water holes and scattering the buffalo. She was invincible, her stony hide impervious to any spear or arrow. The people lived in the shadow of her chaos, their world held hostage by her evil. Falling Star knew he could not defeat her with strength alone. He had to learn her secret, the one vulnerability hidden on her immense form. He embarked on a solitary quest, seeking out the ancient wisdom of the animal guides. He listened to the chattering prairie dogs who knew the secrets of the underground. He consulted the keen-eyed hawk who saw everything from above. It was the humble spider weaving its delicate web in a canyon crevice who finally revealed the truth. Unsegila's weakness was not on her body but deep within it. A single, pulsating crystal of immense power was hidden inside her, just below the seventh spot from the tip of her tail. To shatter that crystal was to shatter her life. Armed with this sacred knowledge, Falling Star prepared for the ultimate hunt. He took his finest arrow and sought out the monster's lair. The battle was a cataclysm of earth and sky. Unsegila thrashed and roared, her two faces spewing venom and rage, trying to crush the celestial hero. Falling Star moved with the speed of a shooting star, dodging her attacks, waiting for his one chance. As she coiled to strike, he saw his opening, the seventh spot on her tail momentarily exposed. He drew his bow, and with the combined strength of the earth and the heavens, he let his arrow fly. It struck true, piercing the scale and shattering the internal crystal with a sound like 1,000 thunderstorms. Unsegila's stone body cracked apart, her evil essence scattering to the winds. With the monster defeated, life returned to the plains. The rains fell, the grass grew green, and the buffalo herds thundered once more. Falling Star's work was done. He bid farewell to his grandmother and the people, ascending back into the night sky, his light a permanent promise in the darkness. This myth was far more than a simple monster tale. It cemented the vital bond between the celestial and the terrestrial. The stars were not cold, distant lights, they were active guardians. Falling Star's victory was a divine intervention that reinforced the moral order, proving that even the most terrifying chaos could be overcome with courage, wisdom, and the help of the natural world. If a single star could fall to Earth to save its people, then every light in the night sky is a potential sentinel, a silent witness to the struggles below. Even the mighty rule of the Olympians was not yet secure. A final, terrifying challenge erupted from the very soil of Greece, born from a primordial crime. When the Titan Cronus castrated his father Uranus, the blood that fell upon the earth gave rise to a new race of monsters, the giants. These were not mere large men, but colossal beings with serpentine legs, born from the deep, chthonic power of Gaia, the earth herself, to avenge the Titan's imprisonment. They were a direct assault on the celestial order. Armed with flaming rocks and whole trees they tore from the ground, their goal to storm Olympus and drag the gods from their thrones. This was the Gigantomachy, the war of the giants, and it would be the ultimate test of the Olympian sovereignty. The gods soon realized a dire prophecy. They could not win this war alone. A mortal hero was needed to fight beside them, a champion whose presence could turn the tide. That hero was Hercules, the son of Zeus, whose immense strength and destiny made him the key to divine victory. The battle was a series of legendary, personalized duels that scarred the landscape itself. The goddess Athena, a master of strategy, faced the giant Enceladus. Their fight was so cataclysmic that when she finally defeated him, she did not simply slay him. She buried him alive beneath the great island of Sicily, and the giant's restless, fiery breath became the volcanic furnace of Mount Etna, his struggles causing the earth to tremble for all time. Poseidon chased the giant polar boats across the sea, finally hurling a massive piece of the island of Kos at him, which became the island of Nisyros, pinning him forever beneath the waves. Zeus battled the mighty Porphyrion, the king of the giants, while Dionysus fought with his Theseus staff, and Artemis rained arrows from afar. but in each crucial moment it was Hercules and his poisoned arrows that delivered the final killing blow. A god could wound a giant, but only the mortal hero could make that wound permanent, ending their monstrous lives. This hard-fought victory was more than just another war. It was the definitive closing of a cosmic chapter. The Titanomachy represented the triumph of the new Olympian order over the raw, untamed, and chaotic forces of the earth itself. It was the victory of civilization, represented by the gods and their human ally, over the savagery of nature. This myth resonated so powerfully with the ancient Greeks that it became a favorite subject for poets and artists, depicted in magnificent detail on everything from grand temple friezes like the altar of Pergamon to intricate pottery. These artistic celebrations were a constant reminder that the world they knew, a world of city-states, laws, and culture, existed only because the gods had once fought a desperate, earth-shattering war to secure it against the giants of the wild. If the very mountains we walk upon are the tombs of fallen giants, what other ancient buried powers might still slumber beneath our feet, their defeat the reason for our world's fragile peace? 25 myths echo across the heavens, but one pattern connects them all, a story written in starlight from Greece to the Great Plains. It is the tale of the cosmic hunt, an eternal chase forever captured in the constellations. Look up at Orion, the mighty hunter, his belt of 3 stars gleaming. He is forever pursued by the Scorpion, the constellation Scorpio, placed on the opposite side of the sky, so the hunter eternally flees the creature that caused his demise. This is not just a Greek story. In Siberia, a great celestial elk is hunted by 3 brothers. Across Native America, a bear is pursued by 7 hunters, their journey marked by the stars of the Big Dipper. In each version, a hunter and his prey are locked in an endless loop across the dome of night, a pursuit that never ends and never begins, a battle frozen at its most dramatic moment. This universal myth transforms the silent, random stars into a grand, familiar narrative. It is our ancient mind seeking order in the chaos, projecting the most fundamental human struggle, the hunt for survival, onto the cosmos itself. These celestial dramas gave people a map not just of the sky, but of their own lives, a reminder of the cycles of pursuit, of the tension between predator and prey, of a conflict that defines existence. Why would cultures with no contact, from the frozen tundra to the desert southwest, all see the same story in the same stars? It reveals a profound truth about humanity. We are storytellers by nature, and our first and greatest canvas was the night sky. We looked up and did not see cold, distant suns. We saw our own dramas, our fears, and our triumphs played out on an epic, celestial scale. The cosmic hunt is the final proof that these myths of celestial battle are not isolated curiosities, but the shared heritage of humankind, a testament to our universal need to find meaning in the vast, beautiful darkness above. Silent and eternal, that celestial hunt still plays out overhead every single night. We have traveled across continents and through millennia, from the watery abyss of Tiamat to the frozen peaks of Mount Damavand, from the scorching plains of Teotihuacan to the misty underworld of Xibalba. 25 ancient voices, each telling a story of gods and monsters locked in combat among the stars. And from this incredible tapestry of myths, 3 profound truths emerge, echoing from culture to culture as if whispered by the cosmos itself. The first is the universal struggle between order and chaos, seen in Marduk's fight against the primordial sea and Perun's endless chase of the serpent veils. The second is the sacrificial nature of creation itself, the terrible price paid for the world we know, from Nanahuatzin's leap into the divine fire to the spilled blood of the Aztec gods that set the sun in motion. And the third is the deepest truth of all, the undeniable human need to explain the terrifying beauty of the universe through the power of story. These celestial battles were never mere entertainment. They were the operating system of ancient civilizations, the foundational code that explained why the sun rises, why the earth quakes, and why a king has the right to rule. They gave people a framework for understanding their place in a vast, often frightening cosmos, transforming random stellar phenomena into a divine drama where their prayers and actions held meaning. So the next time you find yourself under a clear, dark sky, take a moment, look up at those ancient lights, find the hunter Orion forever fleeing the scorpion. See the great bear circling the pole star, and in that silence listen for the echoes of 1,000 forgotten voices. See the dragon, the serpent, the fallen giant, and the hero with a spear of light. The epic is still there, written in starlight, waiting for us to remember the stories. We would love to hear which of these celestial battles captured your imagination the most. Share your favorite myth of the heavens in the comments below and keep the ancient conversation with the stars alive.